I'm Membership Director of the Los Angeles chapter of ASID, and I would like to welcome you all to our panel discussion today. Before we begin, I would like to thank our hosts, Egg and Dart Home and Woven Accents, for putting on this event today, and a special thanks to Keith and Gail Hudson for all the hard work they've done for today's event. And I would also like to introduce Fernanda Diaz and Pam Mayer, our president, to make a few announcements.
Thank you, Perusa. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to thank our panel so much for all of the hard work you've done in preparing for today. It really takes a lot to put these on, so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And a special thank you to Perusa, our membership director, and Cheryl Fleischer. They've worked really hard on this event, so we're very excited to be with you today. Thank you.
And our moderator for coming out today and giving us your time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Keith Hudson of Egg and Dart Home.
Am I on? Yes, I'm on. Great. I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce you to Egg and Dart Home. You've never heard of us before. That's because we're brand new. And we just became a showroom yesterday when all of our furniture started arriving from all of the wonderful manufacturers that you see represented by the posters around the room. So on August the 1st of this year, Egg and Dart Home will occupy the space that you're in right now. I know that Woven Accents owners are very excited to be moving to their new showroom, which will be on Melrose Avenue across from the Pacific Design Center. And it's about half again as big as the space that they're in right now, which gave us the wonderful opportunity to move from next door into this showroom, which will be about 6 times the size of the showroom that we have next door. So today is really, if I can just be personal for a moment, this is all about my wife, Gail, who is over there. Because 3 years ago, when we bought Quackenbush and Winkler, as it was slowly dying on the vine, as so many great manufacturers have in the last 5 years, she said to me, the one thing we will do, Keith, is be all about the designer. The reason for that is that Gail is an interior designer. And for those of you that live with interior designers, who are interior designers, you know that that's always an interesting process. So we have had a fabulous experience growing Quackenbush and Winkler and antique designs back into the world of manufacturing fine custom furniture for many of you in this room today. Then, as the economy started to turn around, and I think we're all starting to feel that there's a little hope and a little ray of sunshine somewhere along there, and that the light at the end of the tunnel is no longer an oncoming train, but might just be a blink of sunshine, that Gail said, how do we make ourselves more about the designer? And one of the things that we've noticed, as I'm sure all of you have, is that the demise of the independent multi-line showroom over the last 5 years, as the economy has made it very difficult for us to survive in this industry, and as Mr. Cohen has made it even more difficult to exist in the Pacific Design Center. So we decided that it would be fun to have a multi-line showroom, but we don't know anything about multi-line showrooms, so we reached out to somebody that we have a tremendous amount of respect for that has 2 great multi-line showrooms, one in Palm Desert, one in Denver, Stephen Reed Love from Egg and Dart, and said, come on, let's put a multi-line showroom together in Los Angeles and start a new tradition of multi-line showrooms. So that was inked earlier on this year, and here we are, we're Egg and Dart Home, and we're very excited to be here. You will find us to be very interesting. We're going to be very much a multi-line, and thanks to Gail, it will be all about you, the designers. And we hope that we can be your friends and that you will be ours. So with no more ado, I'd like to introduce you to Susan McFadden, sitting here in this beautiful chair from GLP Designs, Antique Designs. Susan is, as most of you know, editor-in-chief of California Homes. She is a lady that has been a tremendous supporter of our industry for a long, long time, and we're very honored to have her be our moderator on our panel today. So I'm going to get off the stage and turn it over to you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. Rediscovering the value of traditional design. Throughout my career as editor of California Homes, I have seen design trends come and go, from way back the Santa Fe decor to the oversized shabby chic of the 90s. And we all know that what is in vogue today is probably going to be passé tomorrow. However, there are some trends that have endured and have never become outdated, and one of those trends is not even a trend. It is the look of classic traditional furniture. And I say classic because I personally feel there's a difference between classic traditional and the traditional maybe that my mother or my grandmother had in her home. So we're really growing, and I think traditional furniture is changing also. But the inherent beauty of some of these pieces will always be elegant and timeless, such as the beautiful concealed beauty of the secretary or the brilliance of a drop leaf table. All designed with a sensibility that is and always will be appealing to designers and their clients. I personally see a resurgence of traditional furnishings as they find their way into the backdrop of contemporary interiors, and today we have an esteemed panel of designers here to talk about the value and appeal of using traditional pieces in their work and how they breathe new life into today's modern design. So today I'm going to start by introducing our panel and reading a short bio on each of them. We've tried to cut their bios down just to save time, but they're all so accomplished. I just have to tell you some of what they've done, and they're all amazing. We're going to start with Darrell Schmitt. Darrell, ASID, CID, graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Interior Design from the Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. Darrell settled in New Orleans, where he headed his own interior design firm for 15 years. After moving to Los Angeles in 1987, Darrell joined James Northcutt, an innovator in hospitality design. He advanced to design principal of James Northcutt Associates, which became world-renowned for its timeless, classic approach to interior design. In 1997, Darrell re-established his own firm in Los Angeles. The Montage Beverly Hills and the Pelican Hill Resort in the Newport Coast were two projects completed in 2008. Other projects encompass the Peninsula Beverly Hills, Casa del Mar Hotel in Santa Monica, Calistoga Ranch in Napa Valley, and several four-season hotels and resorts around the world. His award-winning work has been published in Architectural Digest, Interior Design, House and Garden, Hospitality Design, California Homes, and numerous other magazines and books published both in the United States and abroad. So welcome, Darrell. Thank you for being here and taking time to come and talk to us. Next to me is Krista Everage, ASID, CID, and she's a Santa Monica designer. Her firm is called Everage Design, Inc., and has been creating romantic and timeless interiors for a sophisticated Los Angeles clientele since 1986. She works in partnership with her artistic and resourceful husband, John Everage. Krista is originally from Pennsylvania and was educated at the School of Architecture and Interior Design at the University of Cincinnati's College of Design. It's a lot of talking. Architecture and art. She interned doing commercial interiors for Chicago for Swank Hayden and Connell Architects, and also for Suzanne Kassler in Indianapolis, another UC grad, before moving to Los Angeles. Krista takes inspiration from both nature and art history, and she loves working in LA because of the great variety of architectural styles and the dreamy Mediterranean climate. She is currently launching her furniture line, Everage Design Workshop, and is also a high-end jewelry designer, Krista Everage Studio Beautiful Jewels. She is a member of the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art and a friend of Virginia Robinson Gardens in Beverly Hills. Krista and John have two daughters together who both work part-time with Everage Design. And thank you. You sound like you're busy too. I mean, 3 different types of businesses there. And of course, next to me, I have Mark Cutler. I love his accent. He's the nicest, funniest guy in the world. And he's an allied member of ASID, founded in 2000, following his 10-year tenure at William Hablinski Architecture. Mark Cutler Design, Inc. offers a wide range of interior design services, including space planning, construction, renovation, aesthetic and structural revitalization, and lighting and furniture procurement. Formerly the resident interior designer at A&E's TV Makeover Mamas, Cutler's Creating Style for Life design philosophy has won him numerous accolades and the attention of many celebrity clients, including Steve Carell, Vanna White, Bill Phillips, and Jennifer Lopez. That's not all. In addition to having participated in the most prestigious showcase houses in Southern California, his work has been featured in many of the leading shelter and design magazines around the world. On the television front, Cutler has made numerous appearances on HGTV, Designer's Challenge, MTV, A Day in the Life of Jennifer Lopez, The Style Network, House Beautiful, and Discovery Channel, as well as on KABC and KNBC in Los Angeles. So welcome to you, Mark. And last, but certainly not least, my good friend Monique Lafia, ASID CID. She is from Philadelphia and later Miami, Florida. After graduating college, she soon discovered her passion for design, architecture, the arts, and music. She studied design at the UCLA Design Program, where she obtained her design degree from preeminent practitioners in the design and architecture fields. Monique spent 9 years as a designer for highly respected veteran Los Angeles designers Waldo Fernandez, Cheryl Rowley, and Hendrix Allardyce, obtaining experience designing international luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, and luxury estates. At the same time, Monique acquired the technical experience she considered necessary for designing luxury residences and obtained CCIDC and NCIDQ certification before launching Lafia Arvin in 1997. Her passion is painting, oils and pastels, piano, doubles tennis with her partner Christine Anderson, and her twins. She has twin children, beautiful children. Monique is an active member of the Institute of Classical Architecture in New York and the Decorative Arts and Design Council of LACMA, Los Angeles. Thank you for being here. It's nice to have you all. So as we start our questions, what happened the other day at our little rehearsal meeting was everybody started talking at once, and pretty soon we had this large, great conversation going on, and I think that maybe that'll work today if you want to just kind of all jump in. But we're going to start with one question for Darrell, and that is, how do designers like to update traditional pieces to give them an edge and reinvent them?
Well, I think there's almost endless variety to that, as witnessed in the publications that you see today. There's, when I started too many years ago to talk about, basically a client came to you and said they wanted a French interior or they wanted an English interior. And nobody asks for that anymore. The idea of making a straight out, very literal interpretation of traditional design, again, as if you read the magazines, you'll see that it's hardly ever even covered today. The variety is endless in the way that designers interpret how to use traditional design, even in exceedingly contemporary interiors. There's a rich mind to vein here that, because I see a lot of designers in the audience, and I know that you're all dealing with that question in very different ways, but that is definitely what I've seen as a changing trend.
And for Krista, what traditional pieces seem to lend themselves to integrating well into contemporary interiors, like dining tables, wing chairs, oriental rugs, and armrest?
Well, I think a number of pieces, especially accent pieces, which would include things like a table or an accent chair, case goods, a very unique cabinet, perhaps, that might be Italianate, but the scale is contemporary. And of course, mirrors and chandeliers are always the jewelry, which I find very important in the interior. I think the bigger pieces, like a sleek sofa, cleaned up upholstery especially, and you have to be very careful with the rugs. And if you mind that, I think you can have a very rich but completely contemporary interior. That'd be my short answer.
That's great. I have to ask you a question. Is that necklace from your jewelry collection?
It is.
That is beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, it sort of has that mix.
Is it in the gift bag?
Okay, so we're moving on. Mark, what are some of the attributes that traditional pieces bring to a contemporary room? Softness, warmth, a link to the past, giving clients a sense and value of their family's past?
I think for us that one of the things that a lot of our clients are looking for is a sense of authenticity in their house. And we approach our interior design really as a form of portraiture, so that when you look at the variety of different projects that we do, you really get an insight into the values and the outlook and the aspirations of the clients who live there, rather than just sort of another interpretation of us. So for us, using antiques and mixing them with more contemporary pieces really creates this sense of history that's almost instantaneous. And whether they're pieces that come from grandma or pieces that come from a trip that we may take to Paris, having... Are you there? Oh, fine. Welcome back. Having that story is really important, and it's very important to me that when people come and visit their homes, it's not like, well, what's this table? It's not like, well, my designer found this. It's like, well, we were in Paris and it was raining, we ran into this little store and I hit my foot on it and we decided this was the perfect thing. And that really creates that authentic story that I think is something that's relatively new in interior design, that people realize that they can have that, and I think that's a really great thing.
I agree. I love mixing, especially if you have a good antique. It's a shame to put it in the storage unit and whatever, or give it to one of your kids. No way. So Monique, we have a question for you. What was your most challenging project? I think we talked about this the other day. You've had a few.
Yes, there are so many. It's kind of hard to even begin. But one of the most challenging projects I've had was when, it's actually going on right now. It's actually a quite extensive project in Hawaii, and the client he's a high-end billionaire, and what he's doing is his goal is to basically acquire Hawaii. So as it keeps growing, the property, and he keeps buying it, he's doing an Italianate villa-type home, which is unusual for Hawaii. But part of the acquisitions he's asking me as a designer is to search all over the world for unique statues, exotic urns. I found some beautiful antique urns that we're reproducing now, 15 of them to go in the main fountain area. And I find when the projects go on, this has been going on for 5 years, it's hard to kind of keep the stamina going and the excitement, because other projects take on the forefront, and then we talk to each other on the phone about once a week and kind of check in. And the enthusiasm has to stay there. When you're trying to find the treasures, it takes a lot longer than just having pieces reproduced or maybe a trip to Europe. So in that case, it's happened, and also other situations have happened where the family has grown, or there's the relationship has kind of changed in the family. And when you initially start the project, I had a home in Seattle was like that, where it's a 15,000 square foot home. English style, and it was a young couple, and the couple decided as they were growing and their wealth was growing, they wanted to evolve and change. So the initial design was one stage, and then it kept growing and changing, and then the babies kept coming and life kept changing, so I had to modify the design. But it's really important to keep your enthusiasm, the excitement, and fortunately, I really love what I do. I've been privileged to do this for over 22 years. And I think when a client can sense how excited you are, it's infectious to the whole team. It takes on a life of its own, even when you have a lot of trials and tribulations through the design process. It's really my attitude, keeping my attitude good.
You keep can you hear me? You keep your clients involved then with the project and make sure they feel like they're helping you make decisions.
100%. I think the more I get the clients involved, that's a successful project. Like Mark was saying at the end, whether you kick a coffee table, whatever, in Paris, and then you end up purchasing that, then when you do the installation, whether it's 2 or 5 years from now, then the client you can sit around and look and remember the memories of each trip together. That's what I have found to be the most successful, because then it becomes their home. They're finding the treasures with you. Right.
And we want them to feel it's their home.
100%. That really makes a very successful project. Don't you agree, Mark?
And I think, Monique, touched on an interesting point. I think the day of the dictated designer is gone. I think all of us would probably say we're much more collaborative with our clients, which I think is something we definitely encourage because it really sort of allows them the ability to sort of talk more openly about what it is that they're looking for, and it gives us the ability to give them to fulfill that need more successfully.
Right. Especially when you have huge budgets. I mean, you want them to feel like they're part of it. Yeah. Darrell, a question for you. Oh, do you want to say something, Krista? Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was just going to chime in on that. I really agree. I think the fun of it, as you do this in your second or third decade, you want to have it still be fun and new. I think we're all in this not for, it's so financially rewarding. It's these days not so much, but it's really an art for us. It's really our occupation, that keeps us fresh. And so, in addition to all the wonderful architectural styles that are here, you have all these wonderful, interesting people that have worldly experiences that I don't necessarily have at all. And so you grow through them, and you really try to find out what makes them tick. Sometimes they have things from their past, and then you can edit out the things that are really not so meaningful or not so great, maybe. But for example, one of the projects in the loop that on my end that you can see but I can't is Dennis Quaid's estate in Rustic Canyon. And he has filmed, many places in the world, and he had a few artifacts from the various trips when he was filming, which we quickly honed in on. And then he got a new young wife with babies on the way. So there's his cowboy self, his young self, his worldly self. And we really tried to enhance each of those collections to express all of that in the project. And one place that he filmed is in Africa. So we then acquired other objects from Africa. J.F. Chen had some, and some other more high-end galleries. And they were very fun to mix in with the, modern paintings and the Napoleon III, French pieces, which appealed to his wife. And yet they're somewhat rustic too, so it appealed to his rustic side. But I think that's really our greatest gift we can be to our clients, is helping them to define really a painting that they can live in, that is expressing all of their various selves, and that has a timeless appeal that they can add to or detract from over time as trends do change. And it reveals itself then slowly, and we like to see them stay in their homes.
Darrell, I think the other day we were talking about mixing periods and styles, and do today's young designers have the background, the education, or do they really understand the history behind some of these pieces? And we were talking about how important it is that you do understand there's a history behind some of these period pieces, and it's nice to mix them with contemporary, but the history is so important, which makes them more important to the home.
Well, now you've hit on a pet peeve of mine, and what I see being published these days. And I can only say this after having been in the business for many, many years, and having had a consistent clientele that has come to us over years, who associated us with our understanding and appreciation of historical design. And they knew that we could interpret that, and that our goals would be to guide them toward investing their money properly so that whatever we designed for them had long legs. One of the greatest compliments that we've had recently is a client that was quoted in a publication saying that we did their house 30 years ago and she hasn't changed anything in it since. And I'd like to think that she's not enslaved to that house. She can certainly change something if she wants to. But what I'd like to think is that we sat down and solved her problems and did the job well. She bought very expensive things at the time, and they've only appreciated in value and in their understanding of them. And part of that is that when we sit down to design a room and we put traditional furniture in it, we have a very good sense of the history of why that furniture came to be, the period it came from, the designer it came from, the social environment that it came from. All of that is wrapped up in traditional furnishings. And what I see published a lot, frankly, today is choices that designers make that's more for shock value than anything else. Now, when somebody like Philippe Starck reinterprets a Louis XVI chair, he has managed to create an icon practically equal to the original Louis XVI chair because he understood everything about the milieu of where that chair came from, and he understood his own times. And he knew that he could make that chair invisible and make an equally potent statement out of it. But I don't see that strength in a lot of the work that I see where the choices look very much more random. And the application of the social history of the furniture, which actually makes it meaningful, not just whether it's a piece of sculpture or some exciting choice that you or I think is exciting to throw into a mix. The designers that rise above that are doing much more valuable work, and that's the work that I admire seeing.
Thank you. Thank you. Monique, what are some examples of how you've used traditional furnishings to enhance and inspire your work?
Well, for instance, when I worked on Wayne Gretzky Estate in Lake Sherwood, exactly like Darrell was saying, it was a situation where the client, and you were saying too, Krista, they've accumulated over moving to New York and one house to another through his hockey career, brought them all over the world. And then the client was under the impression she had all of these treasures. So it was a challenge to kind of dig through the treasures and incorporate, because the home is an English Regency style I worked with Richard Landry on, and beautiful J.P. Weaver moldings, ebonized floor. So they're a young couple, and they wanted it to have that cleaner line, but yet the architecture was more traditional. So that was a challenge. But for instance, in the dining room, I used 2 viola round tables with a Tete Negre crackle finish. And then when they have, for intimate parties, and then when they have a traditional dinner, formal dinner, that I on top put together, that they could set the table for 18. But that's a way of making a traditional space look a little more contemporary by having 2 round tables with, as opposed to one larger one, or just using sofas where the fabric is more of a strié type velvet, nailhead trim, just not so fussy, clean, not fussy. Taking away a lot of the clutter. That's really what, when clients show me something contemporary and you really ask them, and what they're really saying is like you're saying before, so getting away from that whole grandma's house. But they want some sense of history. You know, that's why they want to bring in their paintings or things they travel around the world. So a lot has to do with scale, the color palette, and it's a very tricky balance to get it right. And when it works, it's great.
It is great when it works. And we see a lot that haven't worked. But I just think that I love traditional, but I do love that new look of a clean palette and not quite so many curly cues around the house. And, you know, I mean, that's just me, though. I mean, some people love the totally traditional, almost medieval look. And it's just a matter of opinion and feeling. It's just like art. Everybody feels that they have the best taste in art, but we all have different taste in art.
But I'd say more and more clients are leaning towards cleaner, less cluttered, less fussy type of interiors. Mixing the patterns can also be a challenge as well.
And also, when you have a clean, less cluttered interior, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just noticed in a house I saw the other day that a gorgeous secretary, I mean, worth a lot of money. But it was beautifully restored, and it was real old. I don't think you could really write on the table. I'm not sure, pull it down. But it looked beautiful in this contemporary home because it really shows, you know, against a gorgeous white wall with beautiful art around it, of course.
But what you were saying, Sue, also was getting a very high quality piece.
Right.
That's the key. When you start mixing these kind of elements, you have to be very careful to get very high quality pieces, not just something that has been reproduced all over, and the finish is not a fine finish, and the scale of it's off.
So, Mark, well, I'm going to ask Krista another question first, because Mark, this question is so much fun. Krista, how many of your clients now want contemporary furnishings or design? Do you find them leaning towards contemporary, or are they still very traditionally oriented?
I think Monique segued into that question very nicely, and I do think the trend right now, which we're all fashion victims, you know, is that it's sure they want their tradition if they're traditional-oriented people, but for this house,
Mark, you've done many television shows, and what does the audience really derive from shows like HGTV, et cetera, et cetera?
Did you just call me a media whore?
No, I think it's fun. I think you enjoy it.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any real simple answer to that. I think there's a lot of different shows across the whole spectrum. For me, my favorite shows are the ones that talk about design process, and they talk about the way designs are developed as opposed to you can do design in 3 days. Having said that, I think that especially for the people here in this panel and for a lot of the people here today, we don't understand sort of the microscopic elements that we deal with in terms of, hold on, back again, that the people that we deal with are such a small percentage of the general population. And then I think for the general population to have a discussion about design is only a good thing. And that there is something about, I don't necessarily want my clients thinking that we can do a room in 3 days because we can't, but I don't think those are the people that TV is aimed at. But I think creating a situation where design isn't necessarily seen as a lifestyle choice for the ultra-wealthy, but design is seen as something that should be experienced no matter where in that spectrum you exist, I think is only a good thing. And so I think in sum total, I think those shows are great. And I think that there's a discussion that needs to be had with us as an industry, how they affect us and how we respond to that and the way we educate our clients. But I think as a general rule, there's a lot to be said. The rising tide raises all the boats.
Very good. I'm going to step outside the box a little bit right now. I want to finish up with maybe asking each of you, you don't have to name names and you don't have to say where it is, but something that you have in the future that you're going to be working on that's exciting, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant or anything, commercial or residential, to show us kind of what's happening and what's coming up. I mean, are you busy? Are you getting busier? Are you doing larger projects again? I know all of you have some really great secrets and that things are happening. So, Darrell, come on, let's fess up a little bit.
Well, to give you an example of how the marketplace is changing and how our clientele is changing, we have a family that we've worked for over 15 years. And the first projects that we did for them were all about very bumped up, high quality, Frenchy, Louis interiors. That's where my client's taste was. Now we're doing a house for them in London that's an 1835 English Regency house that was completely reconstructed and now with very contemporary Italian kitchens and cabinetry in it. And my client's taste has changed away from the heavy formal things to a new appreciation, and she's become very educated herself on vintage 50s to 70s design. She can name all the designers of all the furniture from those periods. She's taught me a great deal. But considering this, the interiors of this house are protected by the National Trust, but they're all white. They have gorgeous friezes and plasterwork in them, and we're keeping that background. But the rugs are brilliant purple and orange. It looks like it should be a movie set for Austin Powers. It's all very, very much vintage and very contemporary, wall-size, abstract paintings everywhere, and splashes of absolutely vibrant color everywhere. Now, this is the same client who only would have bought a French chandelier 10 years ago. And I think that is reflective of the diversity and the continuing education of our clientele, whatever level they're on. They are becoming much more exposed to design, and as Mark says, it's on every level of the economic spectrum. It can only be good for all of us that whether you do get a room done in 3 days or whether you spend 5 or 10 years working on a project like Monique, our clientele is making it more challenging because they know more, and that's a lot more fun these days.
Krista, do you have anything to share?
Well, after a time period here of just kind of redoing people's existing homes, building was a little bit slow, we do have a new project that's quite fun. It's actually a commercial project. And it is what we're talking about. It's a contemporary, very kind of modern. Actually, the floors are white, the ceiling's white, the walls, we're not sure yet. But we're going to do the white, very white outdoor fabric on the sofas. And
Is it a restaurant or?
No, I can't really say exactly what it is. But it's a commercial project that's sort of like a medical spa.
Okay.
But it will have a residential feel. You know, that's why the folks hired us. But it will be a little bit like what you're doing, except in kind of the opposite world. It's more completely modern backgrounds. But the oranges and the purples, I think that's a trend. Yeah.
Color, definitely.
Color, yeah. And she's got an interesting worldly experience that we will use as the traditional element in little bits. So that's going to be quite gorgeous, I think.
That's great. We were just talking this morning at another panel about color, about Morocco and the colors, and I see us in California bringing more and more color into all of our designs, and I'm ready for color. I've been wearing black or beige for 5 or 10 years. I mean, I can't wait to get some color this summer.
Does that mean we're all feeling happier?
Yes, I think we are. We're ready to be happy. So Monique, tell us about your latest. I know there's something exciting.
Yes, well actually I was just commissioned to do a 10,000 square foot villa in China. And I did the presentation boards, and one of the schemes was French and the other was English, and the other one was, I call it transitional, and they went with transitional. So I'm actually looking forward to working on the project and how that's going to be.
What part of China?
It's in Hong Kong.
Oh,
so
is it a high-rise
it's
or
going to be
a regular?
A regular building, and it's for someone who's actually, she's a spokesperson equivalent to like Oprah Winfrey. I just don't get involved in too much of that. I just stay focused on my design,
Right.
and that's going to be exciting. And of course, I have another client that's been my client for 15 years, and she's doing some work in Brentwood. It's always nice to see a client that Darrell was saying, like, she hasn't changed anything, and now it is time to just doing the guest house and changing that. And I have about 7 other projects going on now, just all over. So it's...
In the Chinese project, was this woman interested in California, a look at California, or just the transitional could be from anywhere?
No, she was very interested in the look of my work, that I was in Architectural Digest and also California Homes. She liked the kind of that look. So we helped out a lot. So she loved that. She loved that kind of look. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be exciting. An international challenge. I've worked on some international projects before.
Have you been there? Have you gone already to meet with her in China?
Not yet.
Not
So
yet.
usually I try to, if they come to Los Angeles, I'll meet you at the Beverly Hills Hotel or the Montage. And somehow it's great because Los Angeles, they love to come here.
Right.
That's why I found me with my New York clients. They come through Los Angeles, which is great for us. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. That's good news. Go ahead, Mark. Tell us what you think.
I think one of our most interesting projects at the moment is the family we're working on from the Bay Area, and they have 5 homes they want us to do at once. And so there's one in the city in San Francisco, there's one in Carmel Valley, Louisville, Kentucky, New York City, and now they just put one in Beaver Creek. And so it's about interpreting that family in 5 different ways for those locations. And so it's been a really challenging project.
I was going to say that's a challenge.
Because they specifically didn't want 5 of the same houses. And so it's trying to make something contextual but still reflects them and their family. And that's really been an interesting challenge for us.
Very good. Well, it sounds like you're all pretty busy, and I hope that we all get really busy soon. And I appreciate all of you being here. And if you have any questions now, we are free to
I have a question about media, naturally, big surprise, which I'd love to direct to Mark. I have many clients who will probably shy away from some television shows because we all know that publications like yours do these glorious, beautiful spreads, and you can see every bit of sophistication that you all do. Then there's a TV opportunity that might emerge, and let's say it's Channel 5 Morning News. What is the value for you, Mark? Because there's a theory that, well, that's not sophisticated. They'll just hire me for throw pillows. Why should I do this?
Well,
So
first of
what's
all, I
your
don't think anyone's ever hired me because they thought I was sophisticated.
But your work is sophisticated. Very
For me, there's a lot of those opportunities that, although in and of itself may not mean something, but cumulatively will. And especially now with the internet, the thing I do on the morning news may not be seen by very many people, but it's going to have a half-life of 10 years as it keeps reappearing on YouTube, or we repost on our blog and things like that. And also, if I'm going to do a TV interview, I want to mess up the one where there's only 6 people watching at 5 o'clock in the morning, not the one when I'm with Peter Jennings at 6 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And so for me, it's a matter of sort of getting those opportunities are so few and far between. get all the experiences you can so that when you have one that counts, you make it count.
And you're right, it's the afterlife that the media is really all about right now.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
We're
Thank you
actually
for answering
about to
that.
start our own YouTube channel of small 5-minute videos, sort of walking through our projects and things like that. And YouTube now is really sort of turned into sort of a small network of TV, and so that's sort of the next frontier.
Yeah. Thank you.
Leslie?
I wonder, Monique, if you would explain what you mean by transitional.
Well, for instance, transitional means taking, like Sue was saying, a beautiful secretary, also taking it and rather than using a red lacquer finish, it's more of a tetra negre finish. It could have a wood stained finish. It's keeping true to the piece, so you're not changing that, but also putting it in the context of other types of furnishings, such as the fabrics, using a different palette. Maybe it's 10 different tones of beige or like off-white or something like that with steel blue. So it's just combining. It's the whole palette. It's illuminating the palette. So it is definitely a challenge.
I'm actually a decorative and a fine artist, and I'm focusing on contemporizing chinoiserie. And I'm kind of curious to know where you're seeing this traditional being innovated and where you see it being successful in various elements of design, and where you're seeing
Our clients, we look for quality and artistry. So that can come from a zillion kind of sources, and the past can be endlessly reinterpreted, and it becomes fresh again when somebody interprets it with a fresh look instead of slavishly copying or making an adaptation. So I would just encourage you, explore your imagination, educate yourself from every possible source that you can look at. I think that we're in a period of great innovation with the art of furniture. There's so many new furniture forms that are out, new finishes. It's a terrible economic time, but people are rising to the occasion by creating extraordinary things to try to fill the void and make sales. And some people are being just extraordinarily imaginative about it, so there's great new choices. Keep going.
There's a great line of wallpaper out of New York called Studio Printworks, and it's started by this guy, Dennis Shah, whose family has been printing for Clarence House and people like that for generations. And he started with this line of sort of basically taking tradition and turning it on its head. For instance, he has a line called it's like a garden toile. It's called the Garden of Temptation. And it's sort of a toile of all these plants. Well, the plants are all actually illegal drugs. But when you look at it, you don't really see that. So I think with something like chinoiserie, there's this whole tradition of great craftsmanship and artisan, but that you can take and just turn on your head and look at it from an entirely fresh perspective. And I think somewhere like LA is really something that really appreciates that kind of irreverency.
I'd like to speak to you too. I think chinoiserie is one of the great historical traditions that is constantly being used in new and wonderful ways. So keep at it. It is folly. There's a lot of humor in it, and it's also East meets West. So it has a very timeless appeal. And in a very modern house, you feature one beautiful chinoiserie piece that's traditional. If it's scaled correctly and placed well, why not?
I have a question for the four of you. You're all obviously very well established and working on several projects at once. How large are your staffs?
Well, thanks to Steve Jobs. The world of technology is really, my staff really can vary. Depends. Right now I have about 5 employees. I'm just very selective. Sometimes you increase the staff depending on the size of the projects that you have. But also there's a lot more. I mean, I'm out shopping and I'm looking at maybe an antique piece and I'll be able to text it or email it to my client in Hawaii or wherever they are. So fortunately, technology has really been it's a designer's best friend because it's such an image-driven industry that technology has saved it. But the staff, getting back to that, a lot of my staff has always come from the UCLA program through Suzanne Shepard, and that's been the best resource because I know those particular students are highly educated. they have a background in history, they're technically, they know what they're doing, the various programs that are, so I have found that to be very successful for my business.
Yeah, there's 5 of us in it.
It's 22, and I can tell you I didn't like that. It was like a locomotive coming at me every 2 weeks for payroll. And I personally made no more money when I had 22 employees than when we have a small firm. But I think really what's very essential for all of us to understand in these days is flexibility. That everybody's mentioned outsourcing, working with part-time help. We have to be aware of doing that because we can't maintain overheads consistently as any kind of a front these days. You have to be very realistic about the changing workload and projects coming and going. So I'm interested to see when I know the quality of work that all of you are doing, and you say you only have 5 people. That's really amazing. So more power to you.
We work long hours.
We work 24/7.
Right, you do. And we've all done that this past year. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today, and I want to thank the panel for taking the time to come down, and also for Keith and Steve Love, Megan Dart Home, and Keith and Gail. Thank you so much for inviting us, and good luck with your new showroom.
Thank you.
What an interesting and very valuable pointers that we got there from these wonderful people up here. I want to remind you that we are now serving wine and great foods over here from Meze Restaurant just down the street. And we have some live music for you and some little classic rock from my era. And we'd encourage you to stay and party with us.